You know that one guy in your gaming lobby who refuses to use guns and only goes for melee kills just to flex on everyone? Now imagine that guy existed in real life, during World War II. Meet Mad Jack Churchill, the absolute madman who literally brought a sword to a tank fight. Let's back up. It's the 1920s. John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill, which is objectively the most aggressively British name ever conceived, is serving in the military. But the military during peacetime is frankly painfully boring. So he gets tired of the peace and quiet, resigns his commission, and decides to do normal civilian things. Just kidding. During the interwar years, he essentially lived his life like a sidequest NPC with unlimited budget. He takes a 900cc Zenith motorcycle and casually rides it 1,500 miles across the entirety of the Indian subcontinent just because he felt like it. He moves to Kenya, becomes a newspaper editor, and works as a male model. He then decides to get a minor acting role in the Thief of Baghdad movie for the sole reason that he was insanely good at playing the bagpipes. He learned to play the pipes so well, in fact, that he entered a major piping competition and took second place, which is hilarious because he was English and the Scottish judges were absolutely furious that he beat them at their own instrument. Oh, and he also casually shot arrows at the World Archery Championship in Oslo. Because why wouldn't he? But then 1939 hits. Germany starts acting up and invading Poland. World War II kicks off. Jack drops his modeling and acting career, looks at the impending global devastation, and goes, finally, some good content. He immediately re-enlists in the British Army. But he doesn't just grab a standard-issue Lee-Enfield rifle like a normal infantryman. No. He packs a wooden English longbow, a quiver full of broadhead hunting arrows, his Scottish bagpipes, and a traditional Scottish basket-hilted broadsword also known as a claymore. When asked by his commanding officers why he was carrying a medieval melee weapon into modern combat, Jack famously replied, "Any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." Bro literally treated the Geneva Conventions and modern military doctrine like a minor dress code violation. Fast forward to May 1940. The Battle of France. The British Expeditionary Force is getting completely steamrolled by the German blitzkrieg. Tanks are rolling, planes are dropping bombs, and the British are desperately retreating toward the beaches of Dunkirk. It's pure, unadulterated chaos. And then there's Jack. He's commanding an infantry unit holding the tiny French village of Lepinette to buy time for the retreat. He sets up an ambush inside a brick granary tower and tells his men that the signal to open fire will be him shooting the German Feldwebel, the sergeant with his longbow. A 5-man German patrol slowly approaches down the road. They have submachine guns. Jack has a piece of wood with a string. Jack steps out, draws the string all the way back to his cheek, and completely deletes the German commander with a barbed hunting arrow straight to the chest. Boom. Gone. Out of the tens of millions of casualties in World War II, Jack scored the only confirmed longbow kill in the entire conflict. Imagine being a highly trained German soldier, geared up with state-of-the-art automatic weapons, confident you are winning the biggest war in human history, and you get absolutely clapped by Robin Hood. You'd probably rage quit reality. Anyway, the British eventually get pushed out of France, but Jack is quite literally having the time of his life. He returns to England and immediately volunteers for the newly formed Commandos. Not because he wants to be elite, but because he thought regular army life was too safe and boring. The Commandos were designed by Winston Churchill to do highly dangerous, borderline suicidal hit-and-run raids behind enemy lines. Jack saw that job description, essentially read "guaranteed near-death experiences," and swiped right immediately. In 1941, the British launch Operation Archery, a massive raid on a German garrison in Norway. The landing craft are zooming toward the beach. Machine gun fire is popping off everywhere. The tension is peaking. Everyone is gripping their rifles, sweating, praying they survive the landing. And what is Jack doing? He is standing at the very front of the boat, fully exposed to enemy fire, blasting March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes at maximum volume. The ramp drops. Jack calmly finishes the song, unslings his pipes, throws a grenade, draws his broadsword, and just screams while charging directly into heavy German fire. And it actually works. The Germans were so utterly confused by this absolute lunatic charging them with a medieval weapon that the Commandos successfully took out the artillery batteries and captured over 100 soldiers. Jack Churchill essentially maxed out his intimidation stat and used it as a tactical advantage. But if you think that's impressive, wait till we get to Italy. Fast forward to 1943. Jack is now a lieutenant colonel. During the Salerno landings, he is tasked with taking out a heavily defended German observation post in the town of Molina. The post is controlling the artillery fire that is raining down on the British troops. Most commanders would send a full squad, or maybe call in an airstrike to soften the target. Not Jack. He grabs a single corporal named Ruffle, his trusty broadsword, and sneaks out into the pitch-black night. They creep up to the German guard posts. Jack literally jumps out of the shadows with his sword raised like a horror movie villain, terrifying a German sentry so badly that the guy just surrenders on the spot. Jack then forces the terrified guard to act as a human shield. He proceeds to walk from post to post in the dark, making the guard shout the password, and then popping out of the shadows with a giant sword, demanding surrenders. By the end of the night, Jack and his one buddy had captured 42 German soldiers and an entire mortar squad. 42-2. Those aren't even fair matchmaking odds. The German prisoners were supposedly just walking in a single file line back to the British camp, carrying their own weapons and equipment, completely stunned and too afraid to try anything because they had just been ninja looted by a guy wielding a piece of sharpened metal from the 16th century. Jack later said that he maintained discipline by just aggressively glaring at them. But even the final boss can eventually run out of HP. In 1944, Jack is sent to Yugoslavia to help the local partisan fighters. They are launching an assault on Point 620 on the heavily fortified island of Broch. It's an absolute bloodbath. The partisans get pushed back, and Jack's small commando unit is outgunned and outnumbered by heavy mortar fire. The terrain is brutal, and only Jack and 6 other soldiers actually make it to the top of the hill. Suddenly, a German mortar shell lands directly in their trench. Everyone is killed or severely wounded. Everyone except Jack, who apparently had maxed out his dodge stats. He is the only one left capable of fighting. He's completely surrounded. The Germans are advancing up the hill, closing in on his position. Does he surrender? Does he shoot his last pistol mag in a blaze of glory? No. He sits down in the dirt, pulls out his bagpipes, and starts beautifully playing a sad Scottish song called Will Ye No Come Back Again, while bullets are literally flying over his head. He keeps playing until a German grenade explodes nearby, showering him with shrapnel and knocking him completely unconscious. The Germans capture him, find his sword, and immediately assume he must be a direct relative of Winston Churchill because nobody else would be this arrogantly British. He wasn't related to the Prime Minister, by the way, but the Germans didn't believe him. They thought they had captured the highest value hostage in the war, so they put him on a special plane to Berlin for interrogation, and then threw him into the VIP section of the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. Now, you think a prison camp could hold the man who brought a sword to World War II? Jack and a Royal Air Force officer named Harry James decided they were bored. So, they crawled into an abandoned drain, dug a massive tunnel under the barbed wire in absolute secrecy, and escaped. They casually walked through the German countryside, trying to hike all the way to the Baltic coast to find a neutral Swedish ship. They walked for days, completely undetected, until they got caught in the city of Rostock, just a few miles from freedom. The Germans were furious. They transferred Jack to an even higher security SS camp in the Austrian Tyrol, surrounded by the Alps. But in April 1945, the Nazi regime was completely collapsing. The SS guards at the camp decided they were going to execute all the VIP prisoners before the Allies arrived. However, a unit of regular German army soldiers, the Wehrmacht, actually stepped in, outgunned the SS, and protected the prisoners. The SS fled. In the middle of this chaotic standoff, Jack didn't sit around waiting for an official Allied rescue. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a rusty tin of stolen onions, and casually walked away. He hiked 93 miles, roughly 150 kilometers, across the treacherous, freezing Alps with a sprained ankle, surviving on nothing but vegetables he dug up from farms, until he bumped into an American armored column in Verona, Italy. He was free. The war in Europe was basically won. He should have been thrilled, right? Wrong. He was actually annoyed. By the time Jack got sent to the Pacific Theater to fight the Japanese in Burma, America had dropped the atomic bombs and the war ended. Jack's reaction? He was genuinely furious. He was quoted saying, "If it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. Bro was actively having fun. He returned to Britain, but a normal life was still completely out of the question. He qualified as a paratrooper at age 40. In 1948, he deployed to Palestine as the second in command of the Highland Light Infantry. One day, a Jewish medical convoy known as the Hadassah Convoy gets ambushed by Arab forces in Jerusalem. Hundreds of doctors, nurses, and patients are trapped in buses under heavy machine gun fire. The British military command hesitates to get involved. But Jack doesn't wait for orders. He puts on his full parade uniform, kilt, medals, the whole 9 yards, grabs a walking stick, and literally walks out into the middle of the active war zone. Completely unarmed, he strolls up to the convoy while bullets are hitting the dirt around him, smiling and offering to evacuate the passengers in his armored car. When they refuse, thinking the Jewish paramilitary will save them, Jack coordinates covering fire and does everything he can to try to save the convoy. He later led the evacuation of 700 Jewish doctors and patients from the hospital. Even after he formally retired from the military, the chaos didn't stop. He moved to Australia and became a surfer. He returned to England, built his own custom surfboard, and became the first person to ever surf the River Severn's massive tidal bore. He spent his later years commuting on a train from London, and every single day, as the train passed his house, he would randomly open the window and hurl his briefcase out into his own backyard. Purely so, he wouldn't have to carry it from the station. He lived a completely chaotic, deeply legendary life until passing away peacefully in 1996 at the age of 89. Mad Jack Churchill spawned into the wrong century, treated the deadliest conflict in human history like a massive sandbox game, and won. So make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Before Jack comes back from the grave to vibe check you with a broadsword.